Special good morning to our listeners. Special good morning to the viewers of course, listeners of Classic Radio, viewers of GBN TV. Welcome to today's edition of To The Point. I'm your host, GT. How's everybody doing? It's a lovely morning. I was at least saying it's a lovely morning over there. I just like the feeling it is at. Not too hot in terms of the feeling or the humidity and stuff like that. It's just a moderate level. I like it like that. Good morning to those of you via social media platforms. Good morning to you. I had a conversation with someone out in Canada, was it last evening, and they said, hey man, the heat. Other parts of Europe are complaining, about the heat, but it's all good in this place. When they were talking to me, actually it was raining yesterday evening. When they were actually talking, I was saying, hey, we're getting some showers, and you're complaining about the heat. Once again, welcome. It's To The Point here on Classic Radio. It's Opposition Tuesday on today's edition, and let me take the time out and say good morning to my guest this morning. I think it's actually that my guest is making her debut. Of course, I said her is making her debut, of course, appearance on To The Point. Of course, it'll be hosting. Let's say good morning and welcome to Dr. Myanna Charles. Good morning to you, Doc. How are you doing this morning? And welcome. It's a pleasure to have you. It's my first time actually having a conversation with you. Let me say welcome once again. And how are you doing this morning?
Good morning, JC, and thank you for that warm welcome. I am doing great. I feel excited to be here discussing with you this morning. And I would say to the point, it is my debut in this current seat, but I've been to the point before.
Okay. I did mention with me hosting. More.
Yes. So I'm excited to be here with you this morning. And at this point, I just want to send greetings to St. Mark, to Grenada on a whole, and to persons tuned in online, both here and in the diaspora.
All right. Well, it's certainly it's a pleasure to have you on today's edition, and of course, I certainly hope that we'll have an interesting conversation going forward for the next hour. I want to kick the conversation off this morning like this. I'm introducing you in this particular capacity now. As a pre-candidate for the parish of St. Mark. Who is Myanna Charles, the person? Talk to me in reference, not the candidate yet, but the person, Myanna Charles. Speak to me in reference to that.
Well, thank you, JT. And whenever I hear that question, I think a lot of people, it causes you to pause, because a lot of times you don't really think, who am I? But what I would say, JT, is that, throughout my life, Grenada has been really good to me. This country has helped shape me, educate me, support me, and it has opened doors for me. And, I believe as a person that when you have been blessed, when God has allowed you to achieve, and when your country has helped you become who you are, there comes a point when giving back is not just something you want to do. It becomes something that you feel called to do. And yes, I have been blessed in my professional journey, especially through medicine and public health. But I would say I have never seen those achievements as mine alone. I see them as tools for service. I see them as opportunities to help others. And, taking you back to very challenging times in our country, when COVID-19 was announced as a pandemic, at that point I was in the UK, and the first thing I did when that was announced, I changed my flight and I returned home. There was no question in my mind about this. My aunt looked at me and she said, "Are you crazy? Why are you going back home?" So when people ask, who who is Myanna Charles? I would say this. I am a Grenadian woman who finds satisfaction and genuine purpose in helping others. And that is who I've always been. That is the life I have committed myself to. And whether in medicine, be it public health, be it in the Senate, and now in this political sphere, that will remain my foundation, to serve others, to serve country, and to just serve people. So in a nutshell, JT, I would say, this is really who Myanna, the person, is.
All right. And I'm certainly happy to hear that. Let's go down a different journey with this here right now. At what point did you decide that politics was where you needed to be? Was that a single moment, or of course, is it slowly built to the where it's at now? Did you take time ponder upon that and say, is this or that, this or that, this? You know how sometimes we gravitate towards that, this or that. Was it at a single moment you say, hey, I'm going that direction, or was it something that slowly built up and say, hey, I think that's where I want to be? Let's hear it from you.
Well, thank you for that question. And I would say to start, it was not a sudden thing. It was indeed a slow build for me.
All right.
Politics was not something I woke up one day and decided to pursue. As a person, I've always been committed to service, in my profession. And that commitment existed long before politics. And it will continue whether I'm inside or outside of that political sphere. But over time, I became deeply concerned about, where we are as a country. I felt that we are not in a good place and not creating, a legacy, that proper legacy for the next generation. We are losing too much talent. Too many of our young people feel that they have to leave Grenada to succeed. And the ones that stay and the ones that I communicate with, some of them, suffer from this sense of hopelessness. And I kept saying to myself, we cannot continue like this. I kept saying to myself that, I truly believe that Grenada deserves better, our children deserve better, and the next generation deserve a stronger legacy, so to speak, than the one I'm seeing right now, that of division, frustration among our people. And, it is true that I have decided to sort of stand up and sort of be that change that, I want to see in Grenada. So politics for me became another form of service. It became a way to help push for a different culture of leadership, one rooted in consultation, in excellence, in respect, in that unity, not that divisiveness I'm seeing right now, in accountability and in results, tangible results that can really affect and improve the lives of people. And I believe that, the new National Party as a team has the experience, the vision, and the capacity to deliver better for Grenada. And I'm sure that you've heard this before. The NMP has always have a proven record of delivery to the people. So after deep thought, JT, a lot of deep thoughts, a lot of prayers and reflection, I accepted that if I believe something must change, then I must also be willing to be a part of that change, to help build that change. And so here we are today, JT. And this is where that journey began for me. So it was indeed a slow build-up.
Tell me this, you hear from time to time the conversation out there that, especially within the Caribbean, politics in the Caribbean, especially for women, and they will say that it can be brutal, very brutal for women, especially in politics within the Caribbean. Did that really give you a pause to think about it before you say yes?
Well, being in politics, you have to have thick skin and a really broad back. And I would say, politics is tough whether it's a man or a woman. But for me, leadership has no gender. And this is how I see politics, as leadership. And to me, it has no gender. I mean, when I look around the Caribbean, when I look around the world, I see women leading in governments. I see women serving in parliament. I see women shaping policy, leading in companies, and I see that representation of women leadership. And I also see that representation in my own party as well, in the new National Party. We are led by a phenomenal woman, in the Honorable Eminent Pair. So I really say in that sense, yes, it can be brutal, and that brutality has no gender. It is tough whether you're a man or a woman. So this is how I see it. But I was happy to see that representation of women, in leadership throughout the Caribbean and throughout the world.
All right, great. Tell me this. You took that oath, physician, and you took that oath first. And that oath always say, do no harm. Always say that in reference to physician, do no harm. How does that oath, in quotes, translate into your approach to governance itself?
The Hippocratic Oath, it is one that is grounded in ethics. And one of its sacred responsibilities, as you mentioned, is to do no harm. In medicine, we don't guess about people's lives. We observe, we listen by way of taking a history, we assess, we then diagnose, and we consider all things, and then you treat. Not by imposing, but through shared decision-making with the patient. But even though the work doesn't stop at treatment, you follow up. So this is how I approach governance in a sense. As I meet with my constituents, as I meet with the people of St. Mark's, whether in their homes, in the communities, in our meet and greet meetings, I listen carefully, JT, above anything else, to hear their concerns, their challenges, and their ideas for moving our constituency forward. I am not here to impose a vision on the people of St. Mark. Just as I don't impose a plan on my patient, it's always part of that shared decision making. They have an opportunity to add to the plan and different things. So, I am creating that shared vision, by consulting with them, by learning from them, and really going forward with that vision. And, for me, the oath I took as a physician many years ago, and I wouldn't tell you the number of years because you might be able to guess my age, but many years ago, it did not end at the hospital or the clinic. This is something that stays with you for your life. This is something that remains in your subconscious. It is part of me, and it follows me into my public life, whether it be in medicine, JT, in the Senate, or seeking to represent St. Mark as the next MP. My responsibility remains the same essentially, to really listen carefully to the concerns of our people, serve ethically, and leave them better than I have found them, to really cause an improvement in the lives of persons in my constituents and in Grenada as a whole. This is why we're here. This is why, we have stepped forward.
All right. Tell me something. I want to define your political philosophy for me in one sentence. I don't want to hear it from a party slogan point of view. I don't want to hear it from, your personal belief in what government is for.
JT, I believe that, government above anything else has a moral duty to serve all people. Government must work for the people, but more importantly, government must not work for a select few. We are a democratic country after all. We have to work for all the people. And I believe that government must expand opportunity and create the conditions, for every citizen to turn their hard work, because we have some hard workers, some diligent people in our country, to turn that hard work into progress for themselves, their families, and the next generation. So I truly believe that government does have a moral duty to serve all people, JT.
All right, great. Now, let me also ask you this. As a doctor, you diagnose before you prescribe. I'm assuming you do that, and you have to do that more or less. How does, the mindset shape how you would, approach the work, maybe as a member of parliament. May I hear your views on that?
That's a very important question. And I like that you said, you assume that I do that. And I want to confirm most definitely, wow. I do that.
Yes.
As a doctor, one of the things I've learned very early on, you do not diagnose from a distance. So you don't sit, at the desk and look at the patient on the bed and form a diagnosis. And you do not prescribe based on assumptions. You never do that. You interact with your patient directly, you listen, you ask the right questions, you understand the person in front of you, and then you develop a plan. I have been in the Senate as an opposition senator for the past 2 years, and, that mindset from medicine, that mindset I take from being a physician, has helped me study issues carefully. Ask serious questions. Yeah, I believe in asking questions for clarity and to make informed decisions and to hold government accountable. We have asked critical questions, regarding certain projects. Officially, we have asked critical questions through social media, and sometimes we are greeted with no response. I am witnessing a posture where this administration it appears that they do not want to be asked questions, or they don't provide clarity on projects or issues. People are not really at the center of the national development. I have seen a lack of consultation and decisions being handed down to our people rather than discussing it with them. That rather than coming up with that shared plan with them, having them be part of the conversation. People need representation that listens, GT, representation that understands and carries their voice where the decisions are being made, not after the fact. We have to have people at the center of development. And that is the only way I believe that we can move forward.
All right.
Serious manner.
Thank you so much. That we do for a break. Let's take it when we come back. We continue the conversation. Stay with us, folks. It's To The Point, Classic Radio, GBN TV. We're coming right back. Don't touch it out.
Emancipation Weekend, Freedom Takes the Sea. The Media Workers Association of Grenada invites you aboard Unscripted, the Freedom Edition. Friday, July 31st. Step into an unforgettable night of music, vibes, culture, and connection aboard the ultimate summer cruise experience. Meet your favorite media personalities, party under the stars, and celebrate freedom the unscripted way aboard the Ecstasy. Boarding is at 7 p.m., sailing at 8 p.m. Dress code Freedom Chic, bold, stylish, unapologetically you. Tickets are limited and going fast. Get your tickets online at GoToFet and at recognized ticket outlets. Unscripted, the Freedom Edition, because the best stories are the ones you never planned.
Afrexim Bank is proud to present the 5th Annual Afro-Caribbean Trade and Investment Forum. Active 2026 from July 29 to the 31st. Global Africa comes together at the St. Kitts Marriott Beach Resort under the defining theme, Shared Roots, New Roots, creating pathways for enterprise and innovation. From Africa to the Caribbean, Latin America, and across the African diaspora, new connections are creating new opportunities to expand trade, unlock investment, accelerate innovation, and build resilient value chains for sustainable growth. Active 2026 will bring together leaders from government, business, finance, academia, and the diaspora diaspora to advance dialogue, partnership, and action across the CARICOM community. Join the conversation, shaping new pathways for trade, investment, and innovation. Register now at active2026.com.
Welcome back to our listeners. Welcome back to our viewers. To the Point, Classic Radio GBN TV. It's Opposition Tuesday on today's edition of To the Point. And of course, representing the opposition this morning on today's edition, we have Dr. Myanna Charles with us this morning. And of course, getting set to continue our conversation. Dr. Myanna, good morning and welcome back. Welcome back, Doctor. Welcome back.
Thank you.
I want to get a bit of a feel in terms of my next level of the conversation. Dr. Modest never lost the constituency of St. Mark. When you think about the record, what goes through your mind? What goes through your mind?
Yes, so you are very right, and I want to start that, by saying that when I think about Dr. Modest's record, my answer is twofold. One is her personality and dedication. And the other is the historic alignment, of St. Mark with the NMP. St. Mark's has historically been a stronghold for the New National Party, simply because NNP is a party for the people, and they feel that, in the representation there in St. Mark. And this, GT, I don't take lightly. So I approach this moment, with real humility, with gratitude, and with a deep sense of responsibility. Dr. Modest has served St. Mark with distinction. My duty now is to respect that foundation, because it is quite an impressive foundation, and to build on it for the betterment of all people, all the constituents of St. Mark.
Tell me, how did the conversation, go when the torch was passed? And is Dr. Modest still actively involved in this particular campaign?
Without going into the private details, of that conversation, I would say that it was meaningful. And it was not something that happened overnight. This transition has been unfolding over time, over the past couple of years, through conversations, guidance, observation, and a growing understanding of the responsibility that comes with serving St. Mark. At the end of the day, I am not here merely for politics. I am here for people and to improve the lives of people. This is my stance, and this will always be my stance. And to answer the second part of your question, Dr. Modest continues to be right there with me, offering her experience, her guidance, and her mentorship. And I couldn't ask for a better person, to walk through the community and to be guided by. I truly appreciate her, and I truly appreciate the smooth transition, in that handing over.
What is that? The most important thing that Dr. Modest probably told you, about the constituency and the needs of the constituency of St. Mark, the parish of St. Mark also. Talk to me in relation to that. There must be something that is very important that stood out to you a whole lot in the conversation.
GT, if you know Dr. Modest, you will know that she's a very passionate woman. And, we have had so many conversations, and it's very difficult to put it down to, one thing. But one point that I always remember, her saying to me is that you cannot represent St. Mark with a one blanket approach. And as I walk through the constituency, as I engage with constituents, I see it myself that St. Mark is a unique constituency. Every community has its own characteristics, its own strengths, its own challenges, and its own needs. And I am really respecting the differences between communities while still building a shared vision for the constituency as a whole. So I would say, that is one of the things that I remember, you cannot put a one blanket approach.
What has the feedback been for you so far? You now taking up that mantle, going through the various, going through the constituency of St. Mark. What has that feedback been for you? Now seeing that you may not be a new face, folks may know you within the parish per se, but what has that positive feedback been for you, if there ever been? And if sometimes there have been some negatives also, but what has the feedback been for you thus far?
I would say in life, in everything, there are positives, there are negative. But I am really grateful that so far, the feedback has been really positive. I mean, you're looking at a woman here who attended the Victoria Pre-Primary School, who attended Bonaire Government School, who attended St. Mark's Secondary School. My whole educational life and parts of my adult life, have been in St. Mark. So for a lot of people, when they see me, one thing that comes out, they're very proud and they're very happy and they're very open, to working with me. So far, I haven't had any negative interaction with any constituent in St. Mark. And I can tell you that I've been through the length and breadth of St. Mark, from Fontaine to Digo Peace, Patsa Red Mud, Samaritan, Numperl, Duquesne, Waltham, you name it, Victoria, Bonaire, Grosse Pointe, Moran. And so far, the interactions has been really positive, and I can feel the support from the people. And that is one thing that really motivates me and keeps me going forward every day.
All right, great. Happy to hear that. Now, since you've been going through being on the ground, going through the constituency, the door-to-door and so forth, what has been that issue you've been hearing? There's always issues that folks are going to talk about, but what has been that issue that is so concerning to the residents that just gravitate to you a whole lot?
Yeah, that is an important question. And, as you say, there are always issues, there's always challenges, but what I want to start by saying is that, the people of St. Mark, they are very content to some extent and have been very happy, with the leadership in St. Mark. And that is one thing that they constantly express to me. But as you say, there are always, challenges. And if there is not one thing, I wish there was one thing, but this list is quite long and it can be painful at times. And I will highlight the issues, JT, of our fisher folk as one of the top three. St. Mark's is one of the only constituencies that have 3 landing areas for fishermen. You have one in Victoria, Waltham, and Duquesne. So this forms a significant part of our microeconomy in St. Mark. And governments can do stuff. And we know that government cannot do everything for everyone. Fisher folks throughout our island need way more support than they are getting now in assisting them with finding markets for their products. We have to move past party politics, GT, which I am seeing today, and empower all people, not just supporters of a particular party. I have held consultations with our fisher folk, and I remain committed to providing that part for them for empowerment. So if I were to highlight one issue today, this would be one of the issues I want to highlight.
You know, there is one problem we hear from time to time that, you know, St. Mark's does not get enough national attention they deserve. You know, what is that one problem you think, you know, or that you can come up with right now, that you think that St. Mark deserve that attention that they need to get? And that should be from front to center in terms of that attention. Talk to me about that, in terms of getting that.
You know, that one is it's a question that requires deep thought, you know. The problem that I believe that does not get enough national attention is that quiet economic frustration in St. Mark. You know, the people of St. Mark, as I said before, are very hardworking. They are dedicated. They want to work. They want to earn. You know, they want to build. They want to own land. They want to own their own homes. They want to start businesses, you know, and they want to contribute meaningfully. But too many feel that to succeed, GT, that they have to leave the constituency. Because, you know, and I say this, you know, it's difficult because for opportunities, a lot of the times, you sometimes have to get out of St. Mark's. And a constituency cannot thrive if its young people feel that their future is somewhere else. St. Mark must not only be a place people are proud to be from, and I'm very proud to be from St. Mark. It must be a place where people can stay, can work, can build, and can prosper as a community. For me, this is bigger than just jobs alone. It is about creating opportunities. It is about boosting the local economic activity. It is about creating real pathways for people to earn a living right here at home in St. Mark. So if there is one issue I believe deserves more national attention, it is this. Not only St. Mark, St. John, St. Patrick need a serious economic plan that allows its people, especially its young people, to build a future in the place that they call home.
Young people has always been the concern. You hear a majority of politicians in Grenada, through all of the constituencies, talk about young people and empowerment and empowering young people. What is your stance on empowering young people, especially within the parish of St. Mark? But sometimes we hear conversation, St. Mark's, the poverty level, the unemployment level, and so forth. What's your take or stance on that in terms of what do you feel is needed to empower young people within the parish of St. Mark?
Thank you, JT. And, you know, this is a very important question. I want to start by saying, you know, our young people today, they are our future. They are our future leaders. So we have to do all within our power to empower them. And, you know, the new National Party has always been a party for the young people. I remember many programs, you know, in terms of education and training for our young people. There are a number of young people who have gotten scholarship, who have gotten a way out through education. You know, there have been a number of training opportunities for our young people as well. So when it comes to empowering our young people, you know, I believe that we really have to teach them, to equip them with the skills, the training, the education that they need to develop that path for themselves. You know, we cannot, for young people, give them those sort of handouts. And most of our young people are not asking for handouts. They are asking for opportunities. So as a government, and as a government in waiting, we have to create opportunities for our young people that will allow them to prosper, that will allow them to show their skill sets, that will allow adequate training, and even going further, that will be able to build our local capacity, JT. You hear a lot of concerns among business places in terms of that local capacity and, you know, the workforce. So we really need to prepare and equip our young people to be part of that change, that workforce and that local capacity building. So we have to build the capacity.
Tell me, you spoke previously about, you know, the residents of St. Mark wants to work. In your favor, not piggybacking too much off of, because Dr. Modeste and what you have done for St. Mark's in the past and still continues to do, what would you like to see happen for the parish of St. Mark's, becoming more developed than where it is right now. Talk to me in relation to that. Your personal feelings that you think, or your personal way that you feel, getting into politics, how St. Mark's should be. If the opportunity is awarded to you that you become that candidate, for the constituency of St. Mark, what would you like to see the development aspect of St. Mark be?
GT, this is a very important question, but I want to say, that question, I have engaged with the people in St. Mark, and through their ideas, listening to their challenges, my team and I have developed a plan and a shared vision for St. Mark's. And I don't want to share too much of those plans here today and the details of the plan. I will share it at the right time. But I can tell you some of the key focus areas in terms of the areas that we are looking at, without divulging too much into the details of that plan. This is not the right time, but I will be sharing that in the right time. Areas that we are looking at specifically, we are looking at our young people and creating opportunities for people in St. Mark to earn a living in St. Mark, work in St. Mark, spend in St. Mark, and develop St. Mark. My great-grandmother, Urita Mitchell, may her soul rest in peace. She worked in the nutmeg pool, sorting nutmeg. And she was able to work there. She was able to send 5 children to school there who attained an education. When she did get the funds from the work, she spent it right there in St. Mark, contributing to the local economy. And she was able to buy land and, share some of that generational wealth, which her children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren are enjoying today. So we're really looking at creating opportunities in St. Mark for the people of St. Mark. But to expand, it cannot only include St. Mark. We have to look at the Western Corridor. We have to look at it holistically in terms of incorporating, our brothers and sisters in St. John and St. Patrick. It has to be looked at as in a holistic way as something for the Western Corridor. We are also looking, at the fishing sector very closely. Our farmers, this form a huge part of the working population in St. Mark. And these are just some of the key areas. As I said, I don't want to, go into details of my plans at this time, but you will hear them at the right time.
And certainly do I understand that a whole lot. But we drew for a break. Let's take it. We come into another segment of the program when we come back after the break. Stay with us, folks, to the Point Classic Radio GBN TV. We'll be right back after the short break. Don't touch it down.
GBN Massology is back. We're officially on the road to spice up the Carronade 3.0, and it all starts here. Live from GBN Studios every Friday at 1:30 p.m. Streaming across GBN platforms, bringing pure energy, culture, and spice man's vibes straight to your screen. Hosted by Charlton, powered by Graphic Sound System, featuring fresh faces and seasoned stars. Massology is where the culture takes center stage. WhatsApp 407-8458 now to secure your spot on Massology. And don't miss the repeat broadcast at 8:30 p.m. This is Massology, the heartbeat of Spice Man. Don't miss it.
Swing the digital age, before the world moved at the speed of a click, there was a signal connecting a nation. In 1986, a journey in broadcasting began in Grenada, a journey that would grow into a trusted voice across the country. For 40 years, through radio and television, we've been there for the stories that shaped our nation, the news that mattered, the voices that informed us, the moments that brought us together. Your stories, your voices, your moments. The Grenada Broadcasting Network, 40 years strong. One nation, one network.
Welcome back to our listeners. Welcome back to our viewers once again. It's To The Point here on Classic Radio and GBN TV. Good morning, good morning, good morning. And to the whole as well. All those of you who are listening and viewing. Of course, my guest this morning on today's edition of To The Point, we have Dr. Myanna Charles with us this morning. And of course, our conversation continues. Dr. Myanna, good morning once again and welcome back. Dr. Myanna, I have two final questions I want to ask of you in this segment, and then we give the opportunity to our listeners and viewers this morning if they do have a question that they may like to ask you. Now, what specifically, does my Dr. Myanna Charles, add to the NNP? And what do you bring to the party that maybe they didn't have, they never had before? Talk to me in relation to that.
GT, that is a very deep question. And, it requires some deep thought. So mind me while I answer you as I think really deeply about this. I want to start by saying that NMP has a strong legacy. The new National Party has a strong legacy of leadership, national development, experience, and really human service to Grenada over the years. And I am really proud to be part of this organization and part of this team. I would say as an individual, what I bring is persistence, discipline, and a real solution-driven mindset. And I will share a little inside joke with you. Some of my colleagues, they call me a boomerang, because I simply don't take no as the final answer, when it comes to people needs, when those things are at stake. For me, if one approach doesn't work, I rethink, I go back to the drawing board, I consult again. If one door closes, I look for another, and I keep coming back until the issue is addressed. So some of my colleagues, they always refer to me as a boomerang, but I see this as a strength, because with that approach, I am certain that I am here and I can create an impact. I am here to contribute above anything else, to building my country for the better and into improving the lives of every citizen. So to answer that question, I would say that, I am bringing that sort of discipline, perseverance, and that solution-driven mindset.
Let me ask you this also. NMP has faced criticisms. Do you acknowledge that any of it? And how do you address voters who are still skeptical for some reason or the other?
Yes. Yes, the new National Party has faced criticism. And I would say that in public life, criticism will always come. There will be people that will be happy with you. There will be people that will not so happy. GT, sometimes in our personal lives, there are people who don't know you. They see you and they just don't align with you. just by seeing you as a person. So you do have that. And as human beings, we all face criticism. I, for one, welcome constructive criticism. It helps any leader. Constructive criticism helps any party and any organization to really grow, reflect, and improve. No party is perfect, and no government gets everything right all the time. So where people raise genuine concerns, we must listen with humility. And I have been listening, really listening and listening with humility. But what concerns me, GT, and I must talk about this here, is when the criticism becomes misinformation, hate, disrespect, and that sort of personal destruction of people's character. That is not constructive. This is not the Grenada that we are looking to build. And this does not help anyone. It doesn't help us as a people. It doesn't help families. It doesn't help communities or young people. Instead, that sort of approach, or that approach to criticism, it deepens the division in our country. And I believe that our politics must rise above that. Let us debate the issues. Let us talk about jobs. Let us talk about housing. Let us talk about healthcare. Let us talk about education, infrastructure, agriculture, fisheries, you name it, youth opportunity, and the future of our country. But let us disagree if we must, right? But let us also do so with respect, with facts, and with truth. So let us rise above that. I really want to admonish persons to really rise above that sort of negativity. And I will end by saying I do welcome the criticism, and I will continue to be a positive person.
My final question for you. Your thoughts on governance in Grenada today as it stands. What's your take on the way governance is in Grenada today as it stands right now?
Based on my humble opinion, based on what I've been witnessing, the people are over here and governance is here. I mean, look at me. I am a senator today. I have asked questions officially in the Senate. I've asked questions through Facebook and no answers. When persons ask questions, there is just no answers. And I am seeing this trend, this sort of lack of accountability and that lack of moral duty to the people that we serve. I'm seeing that lack of consultation with people in dealing with issues. And this is not a good posture for any government to take, because at the ending of the day, we are in a democracy. The people have made a decision for you to represent them. And we have to always include people at the center of national development, at the center of the conversation. Bring their ideas, bring their challenges, bring that to the table and help it inform the decisions. Provide clarity to persons. When persons ask questions, right, it's not just for asking questions. It's not just for opposing. You ask questions to really understand the facts, to understand something more clearly, so you can really give an informed opinion on an issue. If you don't have the facts, if you don't clearly understand the issue, it is very difficult for you to give an opinion on an issue. So I am seeing that trend in governance, this sort of lack of accountability, lack of consultation, and where people are not at the center, really, of national development.
Okay, great. Of course, we have a few more minutes left on the program, and I'll give that opportunity to our listeners and viewers over there. 435-2041. If you want to call via the direct line, that line is open for you now. Also, the WhatsApp is available, 435-2041. Let's go to the phone line. We have a first caller. Caller, you're live. Good morning, and I beg of you to be brief, please. Go right ahead, please, caller.
And you're surely right, because what we've seen in the past is a lot of misinformation as well by different leaders. You had a situation where leaders proclaimed that they had oil, so they pursue people to vote. You had situation also where there's a perception that you had to be a imani for until you could become a grandmother. But what we've been seeing now is a government that's trying to do things that never been done before. For example, the creative loans and grants. You're seeing a resurgence even in the music in Grenada. You're seeing people with the com span. You're seeing regularization, pension, fringe benefits. And these are what you call transformation. Now, in the past, you had a leader that thought Grenada was his. And it's amazing sometimes when you hear politicians talk. These are some of the same people that saw the disrespect from the leader of before. They never said anything. We saw the trajectory of Grenada. Now we have a brand new prime minister with a brand new style. And all of a sudden, they cast in those aspersions. It's amazing how things change. You call that cognitive dissonance. It's so sad. And sometimes people who we think were bright, and they graduate and they have degrees and they have position, they just come and do a lot of political posturing. But people are wiser and people are much smarter. You don't divide and rule. You educate to liberate through education. Because imagine free tuition for the folks to get education, the children to get education. Look, for example,
Caller, I did ask of you on the intro that you be brief, please. So if you want to take another 10 seconds and wrap, please.
Okay, last point. 6 special scholarship that was never done for health reformation in Grenada. Government's been in power for years, they've never done that. So you see what I'm talking about. Have a good day. Respect.
You too, caller. Have a good one. Any response to the caller, Dr. Myanna?
Well, thank you, caller, and I want to thank you for your contributions this morning. I listened to the caller, and I acknowledge his contributions and some of the points. But, I do see a sort of political posturing, and this is dangerous. It seems that to me, that a lot of persons, when they talk about the development of Grenada, it's almost like they're trying to undo all the things, or not acknowledge all the significant contributions that the new National Party, led under the Right Honorable Dr. Keith Mitchell, has made to this country. It has been significant. When we look at projects, we look through the length and breadth of Grenada. When we look at our tourism project today, when we look at all the hotels, in our island, and most of them, all of these projects came into being under his leadership. Right? And when we compare Grenada to some of the other Caribbean countries, I am grateful because we have come a long way, in terms of our country and in terms of the contribution of the new National Party and Dr. Mitchell. So while we can, talk about, certain things that is happening now, it could be because of a certain political posturing or where support aligns. We must never erase the legacy and erase the contributions of our stalwarts in this country. And this is one of the things that I want to say. I am seeing this far too often, where we are trying to erase and destroy the legacy of those who come before us. I, as a person, I stand on the foundation of the people that come before me. And this is something I will continue to, and I will always respect as a person. And, I am not saying that there is absolutely nothing being done, but we're not seeing things that are impacting people's lives. Remember, we were promised a transformation. Where is that transformation? Where is that transformation agenda? When we look at our roads today, when we look at the state of healthcare in our country, when we look at so many areas, I'm not saying everything is negative or bad, but the agenda that we were promised, that is not being delivered. And this is a fact.
All right, we do have another caller. Caller, your life. Good morning, welcome.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Telesford. Greetings and greetings to your guests.
Good morning, sir.
Is it Miss Charles?
Yes, Dr. Myanna Charles.
Oh, well, listen. Okay, good. Miss Charles, greetings and welcome to the turbulent, turbid, profound and swollen waters, political waters of Grenada. Welcome. I wish you well all the way. But this whole time is very much interested in finding out what we shall be, or what our country shall be in the future, albeit a couple of years, 10 years, 20 years back. Therefore, I ask questions pertinent to that. I don't go bickering about who did this and that and who continues to do. No, I'm not interested in that. What do we do to change the circumstances that we enter the new election cycle? Therefore, I ask 2 questions, ma'am. And mind you, I'm asking the question because I'm blind. I can't see, so I ask questions and touch, feel up, so that I can understand me. Now hear this. What is your political ideology? In other words, can you give me a couple, just 1 or 2 or probably 3 of your philosophical beliefs that set the basis for your your political, economic, and social theory that you propose to sell to the people into the future. I'd really like to know whether it be left or center, conservative, what labor, whatever. I want to know that because I believe that all politicians have to have obligatory a political ideology. Other than that is a waste of time. 2, information abounds that Grenada, madam, is a colony of Grenada of the United Kingdom, pardon, still. Because we are a constitutional monarch. The king of the Parliament of Grenada is King Charles. The king of the executive, section 23 of the Constitution, section 57, establishes the king as the executive authority in Grenada, ma'am. Are you, individually or speaking on behalf of your party, prepared to continue with this in this country, teaching the people here to believe that we are politically independent and sovereign nation state when in fact we aren't? What are your legislative proposals on that? Whereas, as I end here, that you vying for a job as a lawmaker, legislator, or member of parliament of this country and not a minister. I trust that my questions are fitting, well understood, and I look forward to your answer. For what is worth, Mr. Telesford, do have a nice day. Will you, sir?
Same goes out to you, sir. Thank you so much. Respond to the caller, Dr. Myanna.
Thank you, sir, and I appreciate the enthusiasm in which you ask those questions. And I will start at the end. You said something that sort of stuck with me, that I am vying for a job not as a minister. And you are right. You know, this is something that I have, hold dear to me for a very long time. You know, when we enter politics, for instance, I am in the St. Mark, when people vote, they are voting for you to represent them as a parliamentary representative, as a constituency. Nobody voted for you to be the minister of whatever. All right. And that is something that I always think about. And in terms of moving forward, in terms of our constitution and changes, I always believe, and I will share it here, it may not be a popular belief, but, in terms of that, the person the people elect to represent them should do that. But, there should also be technocrats, specialists in the field when it comes to running different ministries, because you do need that technical expertise and the background to be successful in running any ministry. So that is something I've always thought about, Carla. And this is something going forward that I continue to ponder on. In terms of the Constitution, you are right. We are being guided by a Constitution that was written in 1969. And we have seen in Grenada that referendums in the past has failed. And we have seen, under the new National Party, an attempt to change certain aspects and processes within that Constitution. So to answer that question or to talk on that point, I do believe as a nation, we do need some degree of constitutional reform if we need to move forward. Because in changing the way we think, we cannot only, change policies, legislation. We have to look seriously at the Constitution going forward. So I definitely do believe in that. In terms of my political philosophy or guidance, what I would say to you in terms of that, in stepping into this turbulent water of politics, I believe that we, vying for that role, we have a moral duty to serve all people. And I do believe that government must work for all people, and government must create opportunities for every citizen, their family, and their next generation. So I am here, and I have a moral duty to serve all the people of Grenada, not just those who voted for me, but to serve each and every citizen of this country.
All right. We do have another caller, which will be our final caller for the morning. Caller via WhatsApp. You're live. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, GT, and good morning to Senator Charles. And are you hearing me?
Yeah, she's hearing you. Go right ahead, please.
Okay, thank you. I want to, I must indeed congratulate Senator Charles on her move or bid to public service. I do always want to encourage all young people who actually want to get into politics. I must indeed encourage you, because that is state, that is community service, and I do appreciate the fact that you're young and you're willing to get into that. Now, if I may ask a question, now I know that you're not a government employee, but you're employed in the private sector. And my question to you, would you be resigning from your position if elected, or would you hold on to your position and remain there as former MP Tobias Clement, or would you be limiting your position? Now, another question that I do want to ask is, are you presently residing in the constituency, or are you residing outside of the constituency? And if so, if you're residing outside, how long? I just want to find a basis as to whether or not you are in the society itself and you're reacting to the society. I'm not talking about movement in and out, because we can do that. Grenada is small, but I'm asking about residing. All right? Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller. Thank you so much. Dr. Myanna, I'll respond to the caller. I beg of you to be brief too, because we're strapped for time.
Thank you, caller, and thank you for your encouragement in getting into politics as a young person, as a young woman. So I want to thank you for that encouragement. Now, in terms of my professional career span quite a wide degree. You know, I started off as a clinician, and then I moved into the Ministry of Health. You know, I was a senior medical officer and technical lead, and one of the technical leads during COVID-19 in terms of informing policies at the time as it relates to that infectious disease, that very challenging time. I am also a medical educator, and I do serve in the Senate. So I do wear, you know, quite a few hats. And at times it is challenging. But above anything else, I am committed to the people, committed to hearing their ideas, into providing solutions to the problems at hand. So I am quite committed. And to answer your question about, you know, if elected to go into representational politics, I am here for the people. So if that is the case, that will be my primary focus. You know, that will be my primary focus in terms of providing service to the constituents of St. Mark's, looking out for them, and in developing shared solutions together. So that will be my primary focus if elected. It will always be service for people above anything else.
Dr. Myanna, I want to thank you a whole lot for appearing on the program this morning. It's definitely a pleasure having you, and hope to have you return again so we can even get more in depth. I was more of an introductory, manner with you this morning on the program, and certainly hope to have you back soon. Anything in closing before we take a wrap this morning?
Thank you, GT, and it was indeed a pleasure being here today and to having that discussion with you. In closing, I just want to, shout at my constituents. I want to thank the people of St. Mark's for their love, for continuing to work with me, and for continuing to show up to the meet and greet sessions, to show up when I knock on their doors, and to share their ideas and the vision forward. I really want to thank the people of St. Mark's. It has been a tremendous, I have been doing it with tremendous gratitude so far, and I want to thank them publicly. And to the listening public, I want to encourage persons as we go forward. Let us remember that politicians are also humans. So let's be careful in our discourse as we move forward. Let us argue the issues. Let us disagree on the issues. But let us not tear down each other as individuals, as a person, because this does not build our society. Instead, it destroys it. So let us stand above that, and let us unite as one as we take Grenada forward. Because at the end of the day, I do believe that everybody entering, and I can speak for members of my team, want betterment for our country, want to see Grenada move forward, want to see further opportunities and empowerment, want to see building of the local capacity in Grenada moving forward. And to do that, we need everyone on board. So I want to encourage person, let us unite and let us go forward together as a country. So that is my contributions this morning, GT. And again, thank you very much for having me. It was indeed a wonderful conversation, and I'm looking forward to being on the program again and to going more in depth, with the issues, and hopefully at that time with our plans, my plans for the constituency of St. Mark.
Dr. Myanna, I want to thank you once again, and it's a pleasure to have you. All the best for the rest of the day.
Thank you.
Hey, folks, that's where we're going to take a wrap for today's edition of To The Point. Thank you so much for participating. That's where we say goodbye.